live on Facebook. Good afternoon. I'm Beth Copeland with Georgia Christian Business Network, and we're putting God back in business. Hi, I'm so excited. It's our Take Charge Tuesday power call, and do we have a treat for you? I am excited to present on our platform and even introduce to some, present to others, Joshua Washington. And I want to tell you that I have a treat for you. I'll get to that in just a second, but what I'd like to do right now is just to share with you, this is the year of the double. We're decreeing and declaring at Georgia Christian Business Network, we believe God wants to bring the double in every aspect of your life in 2023. So, how do we help you to facilitate that? We believe that we have identified some outstanding, powerful speakers that have expert knowledge that you'll be able to glean business acumen from. And today is no less. Last week we had Angie Sella. This week we've got Joshua Washington. Next week we've got Crystal Parker. We have such a powerful lineup. So today we've been promoting you, Joshua. We've been telling people about you. They're going to get an opportunity to win a copy of your book today. Several other people here. Yeah, we're giving away some copies of your book. I've had that pleasure of jumping into it, but we've been promoting you on paper. Awesome credibility there. But what we always do is allow an opportunity for our guest presenters to introduce themselves to our audience. Would you do so from your heart right now? Just tell us in a nutshell who you are, what you do, and why it's important that they would know.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Joshua Washington. Again, I want to say I'm so excited to be here with you all. And thanks to you, Mrs. Beth, for having me out. And I represent my wife and son. We are the Washingtons. And what I get to do and serve for a living in the marketplace, I am an organizational psychologist by trade, but I'm also in the coaching and training space when it comes to personal and professional development. So I like to maximize the value of people in every way that I can. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have some fun during our short time here.
Whoa, awesome. I'm so excited to hear that. Now, one of the opportunities that I wanted to share with those that are listening, and we are streaming live into Facebook, is I met you at the Central Florida Chamber of Commerce. You were a keynote on their annual conference. It was just amazing. Crystal Parker is the president of that organization. It is just wonderful to have met you there. And you were keynote on that platform. You did an amazing presentation. I've never seen, and few times I've seen it, but such humility and presentation, and the crowd was just overwhelmingly responsive to your presentation. It was just powerful. And since that time, I've grabbed a copy of The Mentality of Success.
Great.
It is really good, really good. We've had a couple of conversations in which I've learned more about you. Today's direction, I love that title. Tell us about it and how you plan to unpack that for us today.
Well, it's funny. You opened up talking about the year of the double. And that's something that when I was thinking about coming and sharing with this group, I always like to look at each interaction kind of as a moment of its own. And so I don't approach any of them, I like the last one. So this one, I was wondering and praying and saying, okay, what is the message for this one? And I woke up on New Year's Eve, actually. And the message was, you are just getting started. And the tagline was, this is the year of the great return, which matches the year of double, because it not only talks about just the double, but in every area of your life, we're talking return. I don't want people to get just singularly focused and think, okay, I saw that double here in this area of my life. No, it's every area that you take action on this year in your life, you are eligible for the great return. And I can't wait to kind of get into what that means for our dreams.
And I'm going to let you go ahead. The only thing I'm going to say is something, highlight, put it back out there. that you take action on. And I can wait on what I want to share here, a couple of places I've marked in your book. But one of the things that you said, and then I'm going to let you roll with your presentation, and just only as I'm led to just kind of jump in there. But you said, what would happen if every soul awakened with the power to take the first step towards achieving their dreams? That's on page 29 of the Mentality of Success. Now, you didn't probably have that fresh on your mind just now, but what you said marries to what you've written some time ago in your book. So that tells me that you live this stuff. You're not just making it up.
Absolutely.
So go for it. Talk to us today. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for all of you being here today. And we're going to jump right in because Mrs. Beth has given us just the ultimate intro. And I don't feel like I need to add anything else to that because we're going to jump right into this conversation around the year of great return and how you are just getting started. I don't know if I know the year is just now starting, but I want to let you know it's not just the turn of the clock. You, my friends, are just getting started. And I don't mean that from a standpoint of like you're just beginning. Like, you know how when you start in things, sometimes it's not good news, right? When you're starting certain endeavors, it never feels like the good news because that's where the most work takes place. But what I mean by you're just getting started is some of you on this call today, you think you might be getting towards the end, but I'm here to tell you that no, you are just beginning. There's more for you. There's more value for you to produce. There's more value for you to distribute into this world. And here's the thing that I want you to remember the most. We need it. We need you. We don't need you to be on the sidelines. We don't need you to be thinking that, you know, you're throttling down when in fact, it is time for you to throttle to the next gear that will add even more to your legacy. All right. So with that in mind, I want to ask a question. And so my question is, how many of you have a big dream? Okay. How many of you have a big dream that you have not yet taken action on? If that's you, put it in the chat, or if I can see you here in the room, say me, or put in the chat, say me, me, me. If you have a big dream that you have not yet taken action on, I want to know. And I'm going to give you a chance to respond to that. You haven't taken action on that yet. Okay. Now that you have responded, and I think I can see it here too. I have my computer next to me. Okay. I see some people saying that there's more for you. Me. I can't see on social media, but I'm sure you all are responding as well. So if you have a big dream, then my next question is, why is this dream important to you?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's something I got to tell you. This is going to be an interactive experience today. This is different from where Mrs. Copeland saw me at the expo. I didn't get a chance to ask as many questions, but this is what I love to do. I love to ask questions and get some feedback. So I want to know from you, why is this dream important for you? And I'm going to stop and give you a moment to respond to that. Mrs. Copeland, you said you unmuted. Did you have something to say or add?
No. Just go for it.
I want to know, why is it important to you? And I'm going to take a peek here.
It's part of my calling. It's part of what I call marketplace ministry.
Calling ministry, okay. Love that, Pamela. In the chat, connected to my purpose. I love that, Jessica. Are you seeing anything on Facebook? Anyone to respond to that? I don't want to leave anyone out.
I haven't connected with Lisa yet. Let me peek, see if I can find out. Hold on one second. I know she's probably over there. If she had, she would have texted me. So I'm
no
thinking,
worries.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure everyone has. This is a major question before we move on. Is why is this dream important to you?
Right.
And
right.
I would encourage you, if you have a dream that you feel is bigger than you, meaning that it impacts more than just your family, more than just you, I would encourage you to go after those kind of dreams.
Okay.
And you're saying you have some more here?
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to continue on here. Here's why that question is important, because When you decide why this dream is important to you, this next story will make more sense. I want to read a story to you out of Genesis here, because I want to ask you this question. Now that we've talked about why is it so important for you, I want to ask you this question. What's stopping you from going after it? And you don't have to answer that one in the chat, but I want you internally, where you're sitting as you watch this, what is stopping you from going after whatever that thing that you said is important to you? What is stopping you? And there's a story here in Genesis chapter 18 that a lot of us are familiar with, but I want to bring it back to our attention today. And it's the story of Abraham and Sarah. And I want to pick it up here at, where are we at? Verse 9. So Abraham is being his hospitable self, and he's had some people come into his land, and he's feeding them and giving them something to drink and eat. But as he's doing that, a conversation breaks out. And I want to pick it up there in the middle of this story. All right. In verse 10, it says, then they said, which is the three men that he's being hospitable and kind of treating there, which we then found out were angels. He says to them, they said to him, Abraham, where is Sarah, your wife? So he said, here in the tent. And then he said, I will certainly return to you according to the time of life. And behold, Sarah, your wife, shall have a son. Now, Sarah was in the tent, kind of had her ear to the door, listening. And we have siblings and spouses that we know this. They are the depiction of this story. They do the same thing, right? So she has her ear to the door. And it says here that now, in verse 11, it says, now Abraham and Sarah, they were old. And not just like what we consider old sometimes. Sometimes I tell people, once I got over 25 and 30, these bones, they weren't moving the same way. So I felt a little bit old, but I'm not old. They were old. We're talking in their 90s to 100s old. All right. So listen to this. It says, they were old and well advanced in age, and Sarah had passed the age of childbearing. So all the natural things that would support this promise, none of it aligned. But I want you to write in the chat, there's still time. Okay, there's still time. So when Sarah heard this and knowing that she's passed physically and scientifically at that point, the point of childbearing, she laughed. And she laughed within herself, saying, after I've grown old, should I have the pleasure, my Lord, of being old? Should I have the pleasure, my Lord, of being old also, after I've grown old? And it says, the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I surely bear a child since I am old? Is there anything too hard for the Lord? And I'll stop there for the sake of time. Is there anything too hard for the Lord? I read that story because I must remind you today that there is still time. Even though you don't think that you have as much time as you do left, or maybe you think your time has passed for you to go after that, or maybe you think that you don't have the skills, the knowledge, the energy. I want you to know there is still time. Because the dream is never solely about the dreamer. What made that promise and that dream so significant? That's why Sarah says, would I really have the pleasure? Because she saw childbearing as something pleasurable. And I'm sure you see your dream as something pleasurable. But the thing about dreams is that the best dreams, when they come to life, an entire nation gets the benefit. An entire nation gets the return. That's what the great return is. The great return is when you realize that there's still, not only is there still time and you're just getting started, but whatever is burning in your heart to do, it has a blessing that will go beyond just you and your family.
Wow.
And Sarah and Abraham understood that. From that blessing that seemed beyond what they could fathom happening, God blessed an entire nation. What could he do with your dream?
You know, Joshua, I have to interrupt you for a quick second to read page 69. And I was like, I can't make this stuff up. you're teaching some of the things that I highlighted from your book, the mentality of success. When we don't believe there's a generous amount of value given to us, we don't honor our talents or our gifts as such. And you're talking about dreaming in this book is the same thing. I have to piggyback off of Angie Sella last week. You know that her book, Blinger, was, and her product that she developed was from a dream. And one of the things that I like about the both of you is how you're positioning people and giving them, if you will, permission to dream again, to dream if you never dreamed before, and to understand that dreams can come to fruition and manifestation, you know. Keep going, but I had to chime in on this. This book is so good, John. I'm telling you, it is awesome.
I love it. I
Awesome.
love it. So I'm going to help. And I love that. That was so perfect. This is Beth. Like that is, we need to do this more often. We can tag team anytime. This was great. Man. Because I want to show you all what happens. The same thing happened to Sarah. And all of us, whenever we envision a dream that seems way bigger than anything we could do on our own, there's something that happens internally inside of our minds. Because we all, I don't care who you are, we carry at least 3 seeds within our minds. Now, I call them the 3 seeds of limitation. And I'm going to show you what these 3 seeds are. There are 3 seeds that I like to refer to that often limit us from believing that not only can we accomplish our dream, but that we were meant to go after this thing. And so I'm going to switch over here because I want to show you what these are. And I think is it backwards on your end?
No, we can see it. It's fine for me. What about you all?
If it's backwards,
it looks
let me know.
good. I can read it.
Okay.
Because it's showing backwards to me, but maybe that's just my angle here. So there's 3 seeds of limitation. I want you to think about this now. We're talking like seeds that you put into the ground and you cultivate them to grow. And the same thing happens in our mind. The moment you get a dream to go after that business, to build that family, to be that man, to build that character, to go after that level of knowledge, immediately you're presented with these 3 seeds. And here's the first one. The first seed that is inevitable for all of us is the seed of fear. That seed of fear is one of the most debilitating seeds. And here's what happens. When that moment happens of we see the dream, but then we're overcome with fear, and it could be because we may be feeling like, I don't know how to get from where I am to that point. I have no idea how that can come to life. And so fear turns into anxiety. And the more we water that seed, the more the fear grows. Like any other seed. It's natural, phenomenons of life. But today, my encouragement to you is instead of growing that seed of fear, more anticipating negative end results, how about instead we feed that seed with what I like to call courage, or what is called courage. Instead of thinking, I don't know, as a limiting factor, how about I don't know as a starting line? How about I don't know as looking back in your history and thinking about all the things that you once didn't know how to do? At some point, there was a time where you didn't know how to walk, right? And there was a lot of failure in between steps 60, 70, and 80, right?
Uh-huh.
But what happens when we get to that stage of I don't know is that the more we take courage and we trust God, and we trust that if this dream is bigger than me and it's meant to bless all these people, there must be an acceleration on it. There must be a blessing on it. Therefore, as long as there's air and oxygen in your lungs, there's still time for you to get the return on it. Then we muster up the courage to water that seed with courage, which only grows more courage, which then leads to confidence, which then leads to results and progress. So the question I have for you is, how are you feeding that seed of fear? How are you feeding that seed of fear this year? Forget about what happened last year. How are you feeding it today?
Wow.
When you come against a wall and you know you're not sure what next step to take, and that dream seems like it's starting to dim, where do you go from there? Do you renege? Do you just unplug? Or do you rely on this second seed, which is the seed of limitation that is doubt? And this is the one Sarah had. As soon as she heard the promise, what happened? The seed of doubt overwhelmed her. And she thought, listen, I'm not
It's on
physically,
virtual.
Okay.
I'm not
You
physically,
grab on?
Okay.
Beth,
yeah.
we can hear
Okay.
you, Beth.
I'm sorry.
No worries. She thought, I'm not even physically able to do this, to pull this off. And if you've ever thought that, I want you to put in the chat. If you've ever thought about your dream and thought, I cannot pull this off, I want you to say me in the chat. Say that's me if you ever felt that way. We all have, because these seeds, they live inside of all of us, but we get to determine how we water it. So instead of watering this seed of doubt and getting more doubt, I encourage you to instead water this seed and think about, instead of thinking about all the doubt and what could go wrong, think about the potential of not only what could go right, but think about the potential of who it could impact. It took me 6 years to actually write that book that Mrs. Beth been talking about. 6 years. And there were some doubts in between. But you know what kept me in that progression over those 6 years? It was thinking about people like you. It was thinking about people like the hundreds of people who have ordered the book and have said, hey, you know what? This changed my life. And it's not about me or the book, but it's about that dream was meant to serve. Your dream is meant to serve. So we cannot let the limitation of doubt stop us from making progress. And here's the last one, and we'll move on. That last seed is the seed of inaction. And this is probably the one I struggle with the most over the years, where you paralyze and you just stay there. You don't make any progress, because if you don't move, you can't fail, right? If you don't try, then you don't have to you ever feel like you failed and you weren't good enough. But how about this? Let's say you water that seed of inaction. Let's say you water that seed of inaction, and you get to the end of your life one day. And you get to heaven, and there's an angel there waiting for you. And that angel hands you a box. And you open the box, and there's a bunch of gold in there, like golden coins. And did you know this is worth a lot? And if you're like me, you probably get excited. And at that moment of excitement is when the angel would turn to you and say, that gold is no good here. That gold is not really worth anything here. That gold was meant for you to use on earth. That's your dreams in that box. That's all the value that it was meant to be distributed into your community, distributed into your family, meant to be developed and grown, because you have the blessing of being fruitful and multiplying. You have the blessing of replenishing the earth. You have the blessing of subduing the earth. And you know how we do that? You know how we do those things and take dominion, all of that? It starts right in here with all the dreams and the visions. And so when we submit to the seed of limitation that is in action, we in fact are subscribing to the thought that our inaction somehow, right? Our inaction somehow does not have an impact on the rest, on a ripple effect on everyone else. And I'm here to tell you it does. That story I tell in this book about sitting on my couch and not wanting, thinking life wasn't worth living. Do you know how appropriate that story is for today with suicide rates increasingly rising? So you may not even realize it, but your dream, if you don't take action on it, 5-10 years from now, the ripple effect could be when people are looking for the solution that God had already placed inside of you, we may not have it. So take action. Get going today. That dream may take 5 years to develop, but get going today. Because I promise you, if you do, it's going to have a ripple effect the same way Sarah and Abraham's dream and the blessing over their life had a ripple effect. And so these are the 3 C's of limitation: fear, doubt, and inaction. And what I want to help you today as we kind of wrap this up, I think I'm doing all right on time. What I want to do is I want to talk and focus on the return piece here. Because we've been talking now about just there's still time. You're just getting started. But I want to also give you a little bit here about the return piece. Because I want you to leave here thinking, what can I do now? What can I do now? I have these dreams that are bigger than myself, that require a big God. Where do I go from here? Okay? And I want to give you some things that I want you to think about. Okay? I'm looking at my notes here. So there's 3 things I want you to think of when you think of what can I do now. The first one is when it comes to your time. Now, I sent in the chat, I sent a picture here of, it's just 100 little circles, okay? And I sent this picture because I did an exercise like this in a workshop once, and it was really incredible. So if you have this picture in front of you, and if you've had time to print it out, or maybe you have a pen or something, digital pen that you can use, I want you, don't share this with everybody. I don't want anybody to come for me, but I want you to mark out the circles in correlation with your age. Just cross out the circles that are like this. Go all the way down to the ones until you get to your age. Okay? Some of y'all are looking at me. I want you to look at these circles and start crossing them out.
I've got a long way to cross here.
No, come on, let's do it.
I want to say that someone mentioned that they weren't able to open the JPEG.
No.
Right. Did everyone else get it open? Would you put it back in the chat again?
Okay.
And Lisa, over on the Facebook side, I put it in the news feed when I posted initially.
Okay, it's back in there.
Okay, it's back in there.
Here's the point of this exercise. We are some go beyond this, but typically on average, as humans, we're about that 7 to 8 on average. And when it comes to length of life, 7 or 8 decades. Think about it. Right now I'm in the 4th decade, according to this. The 4th decade of my life. Now, if stats show up, I may only have 4 left. Do you think there should be a sense of urgency when it comes to the dreams and the desires God has put in my heart? Does that put a little bit of a different spin of urgency on when you think that, man, you know what? What if this is all I have left?
Wow. Wow.
What if that's all I have left? And for some, it might be shorter than that. We don't know.
Yeah.
So I tell you this with love to encourage you to go after it. And it doesn't have to be some big dream, y'all. My wife's dream was to be a mom and a wife. And can I tell you, that has blessed my life? Did I see your hand up, Mrs. Beth? You're on mute.
I was just raising in agreement. This is
okay.
Amazing. Amazing. And at some point, I'm going to share 3 points that you make in your book about the return.
Okay. All right.
Keep going. You are just on it. I'm just like trying to be silent and listen.
Okay, I appreciate it. So, like I said, it didn't have to be anything big. It could be whatever God has placed in your heart. It may be a business. It may be a community. It may be a person. My grandmother, her dream was to raise 2 young black boys to grow up, to go off and be something. And we make her proud in that to this day. Whatever your dream is, be aware of how much time or how little time you might have left. I say there's still time, but I don't say that because that means you have an abundance of time. I mean, there's still time because I want you to have a sense of urgency for whatever time you have left. Because I believe that there's things that we still have not even seen that will come from kingdom business leaders that will produce in this world a sense of hope that people are lacking in a tremendous way. As business owners, some of our dreams will be to start businesses that actually, instead of people having to go to church, they go to work and they receive the presence of God. And it ain't because we're having a service. It's because we've caught on to the character of Christ so well in our businesses that people come there, and it's like a breeding ground for dreams. It's a breeding ground for hope. It's a breeding ground for purpose. It's a breeding ground for belonging and identity. We don't have to argue with anybody. We don't have to get into the politics and fight with people. We just need to let these dreams that are on the inside of us, present them back to God, go out into the world and let them become from concept to product, and people will begin to see and experience the glory of God. I want to leave this here because I hope, do this exercise. Look at the average lifespan that we have, and then do this exercise and circle the margin. And I want you to spend your days taking micro steps or have the macro dream with micro steps. And so that is what you can do now. The first thing, have a sense of urgency when it comes to the time. That's the point there. The second thing, if you're looking to accelerate your dream, and here's another point on that time. Let me ask you something. If you put this year 150 hours towards whatever that dream is, how many steps would you take forward? Just imagine it. If you're at step 0 right now, if you spend 150 hours just this year, how much progress could you make on that dream? And I'm sticking to this time piece because I believe it's important. I want to move on, but I think this is important. I want to see in the chat, how many steps further would you be if you spent 150 hours this year on whatever that dream is? Let me see what we got. What do we have coming through the chat? How many steps? Just give me a number of steps. Would you be 100 steps ahead? Would you be 40 steps ahead? Because I want you to leave here with something practical as well. I don't want to just inspire you, but you don't have any real substance you can lean on. I see 10 steps. That's better than 0, Frank. I love it. What else? I'd be near completion. Someone said in the chat. Listen, 150 hours or 100 to 150 hours is only 2 to 3 hours a week, y'all, if we start today. That's only 2 to 3 hours a week. Some of us, our Netflix shows are 12 times that. 2 to 3 hours. And you could be near completion. And not just that, think about the people who are attached to that dream that would benefit. We are beneficiaries of the Abraham and the dream in Abraham and Sarah. We are beneficiaries. We just celebrated yesterday. Come on. We just celebrated the literal I have a dream. You never know if you just start to look at your time and have a sense of urgency. And we're not saying kill yourself, but if you put 2 or 3 hours, 150 hours in this year, you'll be one step closer than you were last year. So maximize your time. And this last one here, I'm going to skip number 2 because I want to be mindful of our time. But I can say it real quick. The second one was share the dream. Tell people what your dream is. Share it. Some may laugh at it like Sarah did. But the more you share it, the more sense of urgency and the more sense of focus that you will have on it. When I told people 6 years ago I want to write a book, you know what began to happen? Every time they saw me, they'd ask me, how's that book coming along? And that got real annoying, y'all, because the competitiveness inside of me was like, stop asking me about this book. I'm trying to let that dream die. And some of you are trying to let your dreams die so you keep them to yourself. No. Don't keep them to yourself. Share them. Because that is when we ignite the principle of the great return. The Bible says to have a greater return. We're living in the great return, which means if you want that dream to accelerate, you need to share it. You need someone asking you every other month, hey, how's that dream coming along? And as we end our time here today, we're actually going to do this. So I'm going to ask one brave soul to unmute themselves. And first I'll say this, dreams can be really vulnerable. So I don't want anyone to feel this is a safe space that Mrs. Beth and team and Pamela, they've created. There's no judgment here. And there's no condemnation on whether a dream is big enough or not big enough. Every dream matters if it's bigger than you. So I want someone to unmute themselves, and I want you to share, just one person. I want you to share what your dream is. We're going to do a little experiment here. Share what your dream is that maybe you haven't shared with anybody else. And raise your hand. I think there's a raise hand button, or if you'd like to be one that shares. All right, Frank jumped up to the front of the line. Frank, unmute yourself and tell us what your dream is.
Hello, guys. And my name is Frank, calling from here from Cornerstone Co-working in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And I have a few dreams, several ones. But I would love to travel around the world, like to see the 5 continents before I die.
Okay.
That's one of my biggest dreams. I would love to. Actually, I'm being 2 in Europe and South America. I would like to see the rest.
Awesome.
So, and that's one of my dreams. Another one, I started my own business. I always dream about my design studio or advertising agency. Even the name I have like 10 years ago, and just last year I started the business. Like after 10 years thinking and rethinking, and I was scared, afraid, but finally it started. So, yeah, I would love to. I dream with at least my advertising agency have like 5 people, 5 employees, and I dream with become this on a franchise in South America. I would like to have operations in South America, not only in US, like places like Argentina or Chile or Colombia.
So
that's my dream.
I'm sorry. So Frank, I want to make sure I'm hearing you well. Your dream is to kind of take what you're doing now. You mentioned like an agency, and you
advertising agency, yeah, digital marketing and graphic designs and science. That's what I do here locally. But I would like to have that like a franchise, like operations.
Franchise.
Like operations in other places around the continent, in South America and America, in the Americas.
Okay, so let's see, y'all. Let's see. First, Frank. I hope you don't mind me asking this, but how old are you?
45.
45. Frank is 45. so Frank, the first line of order is there's still time, my friend. There is still time, and you are just getting started. You already have a business, but you have a dream to expand that, which means more employment for people across continents. You can get into certain cities, and you might be the only beacon of light, being a Christian business in that space. So here's what I'm going to ask. Number 1 is there's still time, but number 2, let's see the greater return at work. Anyone in the chat or on Facebook, please write in the chat or even speak up if you may. Anyone that has experience or knows someone with experience when it comes to franchising internationally. Anyone with experience that knows about or knows someone with experience of franchising internationally. We're going to work this third point live today. I'm looking through the chat. I want to see who is it? Who is the one we know? Or if you're on Facebook, I want you to write in the chat. Beth, are you talking? Go ahead.
Lisa Muth is my assistant on Facebook. I've asked her. There's some activity happening over there, but I didn't interrupt. Just flowing and reiterating some of the things that you're saying. So I'm asking her if there's any response to franchising international. So far,
I would venture to put
nothing.
a large amount of money, because we don't have your whole network here, but I guarantee you there's someone in your network that knows someone, Frank, who has experience or knows someone with experience when it comes to franchising internationally. So I ask you this: have you shared this dream with your network?
I know people work in different places around the world with graphic design and advertising. But I don't know anyone who make a franchise for their business right now. But I mean, at the moment, the business I developing is like advertising on demand. Like, according to your budget, I will help you out. So,
but have you shared this dream though with your network?
Not yet. Not yet.
So that is the point that I want to drive home. Time was the first thing, having a sense of urgency when it comes to the time, right? And then sharing the dream with your friends, family, but then also allowing your network to be the greater return. Because there's someone I'm willing to bet there's someone in the Georgia Christian Business Network or a sister of the Georgia Christian Business Network. I have people that's coming to mind right now, but I didn't want to speak up and say anything. But we know someone in this circle that could say, you know what, Frank, if you want to franchise your business, here's how you do it.
And to add to that, Angie Sella, and I don't know about franchising, but Angie Sella is definitely a supporter and sponsor of Georgia Christian Business Network. And she has interaction with China all the time because that's where her product is produced. And she would be someone that could probably connect him to someone. And in addition to that, we have international connections with people that probably would know opportunities for how to make that happen or to start up. So I hear where you're going with this. I believe that we explored that in greater, deeper dive, that we would identify that there's someone that has that knowledge.
Absolutely. There's always someone. We are not independent. We are interdependent. So there's always someone in that circle that will help accelerate your dream. And you could very well go international, have employees over there and be doing business in both spaces. But my point today was I wanted you all to see that it's not as, like Sarah thought, it's not as far-fetched to think that whatever that dream of yours is, that's a big dream that has big implications. It is not far-fetched to believe that this year you can see a return on that. It is not far-fetched. Go ahead.
This is so awesome. And I'm going to throw in these key points here. We started our call at 12:07, so that's going to be our full hour. So just so you'll note that, because I'm going to have you come up with something just impactful to closing statement once I give you a little housekeeping in just a little bit. One, I'm going to do the housekeeping piece, but the dialogue will continue up until June. And then after that, I'm going to have you close this out if you're okay with that.
Yes. Mrs. Beth, is there something covering your computer right now? Because your mic seems a little muffled. If there's anything on top of your laptop or computer?
No.
Or your microphone?
Okay. How is that? Is this better?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. My AirPods are challenged on occasion. Okay. So thank you for sharing that. I want to share with you on page 68, and I need Lisa to note that we want to give away two copies of this book today. So we need to prepare for that in just a second. But on page 68 of The Mentality of Success by Joshua Washington, there's an opportunity here where there's 3 points of what he's saying. I facilitated a session on the 6 degrees of separation, and all of what you're saying in this particular point aligns with that. And
Hmm.
this world is smaller than what we think, what we realize. And we're not doing enough of what you're telling us we need to do to be able to experience greater
Return.
success in this return. And I'm just going to say to that double aspect that I'm talking about. So you and I are so on the same page. That's because it's kingdom and what God's saying. Listen, folks, what he says on page 68. And I love it when people not so much, for lack of a better word, rehearsed what they've written, because you're living it and you believe this stuff and it works. Okay. But the key points on page 68 that aligns perfectly, that I've been holding on to this. I have one other section that I'm going to say some point before we close, is key point 1. You are a servant, and all the talents generously given to you are meant to be used in service. 2, your talents have been entrusted to you with the expectation of a return. 3, you must know how all your talents and their value best serve. Otherwise, you will limit the effectiveness of these talents in your life. And hello, it didn't say hello. I'm saying that. I just want to make sure you're with me. And the lives of others, essentially burying them in the ground. And when I read that, I thought, oh my God, this guy's he's so young to have known this 20 years ago, and what you're doing and continue to do it is you're creating a case for change in the lives of God's people to understand the value of their giftedness. And each of us have the opportunity. My gift doesn't look like yours. Yours don't look like mine. And some opportunities there are crossed like there are today. Okay. And we'll support one another. The thing is, and I love the way you brought MLK. I so admire still the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so just salute him as often as possible. But he was on something years and years ago when he talked about dreaming and what he saw. And all of this month on Georgia Christian Business Network, I couldn't make this up. God aligned this from Angie to you now, talking about dreaming. And people are afraid to dream. You talked about fear. We didn't take time, but if you look through the chat, reason people were chatting here as to why they haven't experienced, and even me, that big thing, because I'm not doing that big thing. And I saw Jessica's comment was fear, Pamela's was fear. And then, you know what? I came out of the closet and I said, okay, so maybe a little fear too. Okay. And so Joshua, thank you is what I want to say to you right there. And thank you for what you're sharing. And I'm just praying that we'll get it, that we're okay with understanding that this is so good. This is so great that God wants us. He's given us, he's entrusted us. The terms that you used is he's entrusted us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow, this is great. What would you say to us beyond fear?
Beyond fear.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you saying? How do you what?
I was just going to say, how do we just do it? Not to sound like Nike. How do we just press beyond that fear? How do we feel like this dream is so big that there's no way that I can do it, and you can't by yourself? And I think you've realized that. What would you say to us?
I'll give you all a secret that I didn't put in the book, but came after the book. If I could draw it here, I would, but I can't get into that. But think about the dreamer, right? And the dreamer is looking off into the direction of the dream. And that dream seems like it's like the size of a city. And so, of course, what Mrs. Beth is talking about, that can seem very overwhelming. Like, how am I going to Like it's almost like you're having an out of body experience. You're envisioning the city and then you come back to reality and you just see open land. And the question is, how am I going to, from where I'm at now, build what I just saw? And I want to turn your attention, for those of you, and I believe I love this audience because of the reason that we all share the same faith. For those of you that are familiar with the story of that is in the Bible about the wineskin. And there's a story about where Jesus is teaching and he's preaching about not being able to pour new wine into old wineskin. Why? Because new wine will burst through old wineskin. So if you are looking or you're feeling overwhelmed or you're wondering what can I do to get going, the answer is growth. Be fruitful and multiply was an instruction for growing. It was God telling us he's made us to grow. We can't stay the same. The only way you can go from dream or dreamer to the actual dream is if you grow new wineskin. And that new wineskin is in the way it's simple things, how you manage your time. If we, for the next 14 days, I have a little book here I use, and I'll show you just because it's my people. So I'll show you all. There's a book here I use, and it has, you probably can't see it, but it has a bunch of lines, and all those lines are just hour by hour. And what I like to do is I like to, on days during my normal work week, I like to record what I do every hour. And I'm not the detail-oriented guy, y'all, but I've understood that if I'm going to make progress on these dreams, we got to take it serious down to the practical level. And so I want to know, what am I doing with my time? I record that 2 hours I wasted on social media because I got stuck in the portal of entertainment. But what happens is the more you monitor it, the more you measure it, the more aware your mind becomes. And the more aware your mind becomes, the more you can access truth. And the more you access truth, the more you begin to develop, and the more the old wineskin begins to become new. And as your wineskin, your life of development becomes new, then new wine, which is the dream, can be poured through the dreamer. Are y'all following me?
So awesome.
That's what it's about.
So awesome. So awesome. Oh gosh, how we bless. And I feel like the disciples, oh, did our hearts burn? It is just wonderful, wonderful what you're saying to us. Feedback, yes. Excellent presentation. New wineskin, yes, yes. Because that's the second time, and I'm going to tell you the other person is a mega pastor, Tony Evans, Dr. Tony Evans, and you in the last 2 weeks have talked about being fruitful and multiply, meaning, just like you saying, the work that we produce, we sometimes, just keep that to production, of having babies and creating life. And that's wonderful. But that's life as well, is that we've got to be fruitful and multiply. It was so important for me as the executive director and lead visionary, because I have a whole team that supports me, whether it's Jessica or Lisa or Rose, with the vision of Georgia, but I'm the primary of Georgia Christian Business Network. And this platform for January, because Joshua, my desire, my passion is to see change in the lives of God's people. And that we talked about elevation last year. We said it and defined it as a continual ascension in your mind and aligning your feet to follow that path. And this year, we're saying it's the year of the double. We experienced great traction with elevation, but now it's time, now that we're elevating those thoughts and we're making that movement, now is the time for us to experience that double. And it was so important that we had the right people that God would send for us to be able to transition into that space and making us more aware of the urgency of our dreams and tapping into our dreams and the benefit to others. And one of the things that you said is love the process. on page 116. I promise this is the last quote. Okay, Joshua, I think, because we've run out of time, and I want to come back to you in just a second with that ending statement. But you say on page 116 is love the process, embrace all the internal work, hidden out of sight from the world, yet taking place within you as you develop the strong, deep, wide root systems. You got to read that chapter around that. But that was so key, is that there's internal work that has to transpire within us, that the process, love the process. God is working out the kinks right now. Don't worry about your past. You got to read some of his book. You got to look to where God is taking you, because everything that happened in your life has purpose for even later down the road. Outstanding. Listen, thank you all for joining us today. We've had an outstanding presentation. We're going to continue this with our Wellness Wednesday platform on tomorrow. They've got the winners of Joshua's book. It's going to be Frank and Pamela B.
All right.
I don't know, is
Thank
that
you.
Pamela Booker or Bartell? So they're going to let me know on that for sure.
Rock, paper, scissors.
But awesome. They'll let me know which one on that. But what I want to invite you to do is Pamela Bridgman Bartell is on this call. She's a GCBN Guardian Plus corporate sponsor, and she's our also business professional for our Wellness Wednesday platform. She shows up every Wednesday here at noon because we wholeheartedly believe that being stable mentally and emotionally is urgent to being able to move forward, to experience greater elevation in your life. The greater return that God wants to give us is we need to make sure we do a mental wellness checkup. And so we're here this week talking about the joy, double joy, how to experience double joy through mental wellness. And we're doing part 1 tomorrow of overcoming the shame. Did I say that correctly, Pamela?
Actually, yeah, we're actually going to look at honor first, and then for part 2, we'll focus on shame, because that'll lead us very well into February, where we're talking about healthy relationships.
Oh my gosh, awesome. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And Bartell, I'll announce that you are the Pamela that won a copy of Joshua's book. And Frank, I'm going to hand yours off today because you're here at the co-working space, and Pamela will get yours in the mail. Rosa, get that out to you. I want to thank Lisa and Jessica for being here, and Lisa over on the Facebook side of the house for manning that post. I understand Toby and some others over there. I don't know why people don't say their names, but you got to tell your name so you can start telling your dreams too, because you could have won something as well, and you could have entered the contest as well, because we appreciate your being here and we appreciate your support. So thank you all for joining us. Please be sure to join us tomorrow for Wellness Wednesday. You're in for a treat. Joshua, God bless you. Close us out. Give us something to walk on. I mean, not that you haven't given us enough already, but we appreciate that and we value your time, and we thank you so much for your support to Georgia Christian Business Network.
Absolutely. Well, I'll say number one thing I want to encourage you all to do. Mrs. Beth was talking about roots and how they, going deep into the ground. Nothing helps with that more than a network. And you all have a tremendous network here around you. So I would encourage you to engage that more, bring people with you, because the more roots you all get into the ground, the stronger the foundation will become. And I'm just so excited for what's ahead for this network, because when God's people get together and we unite, no matter where it is, we see an acceleration. So I'm excited for you all. And last thing, I want you to think through today. The question I want you to ask is, what did you find most valuable from this hour? That's the question I want you to walk away with and to really just kind of think on, because the psychology tells us just listening is not enough. And the Bible told us that before, but also thinking through, how does this apply from your perspective will help you take this and put this into action. So thank you all again for having me. I'll put the link in the chat for those of you who are still looking to get the book. Mrs. Beth did a fantastic job telling you all about it today. If that's something that you think would be beneficial or valuable to your life, I want to make sure you can get it. So I'm going to put that in the chat for you.
Well, Lisa's already have all of your information in your book. And so please, I encourage even perhaps those that have won, buy a copy for someone else and pass it along, because we love to sow into our presenters by at least their resources and just telling them how much we appreciate them by promoting them as well. God bless you, Joshua. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. We will be in contact. We got some things to talk about for later this year. Take care. God bless
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you all
Bye-bye,
for having me.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you for having me.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.